You're listening to the Piano Parent Podcast with Shelley Davis, episode 352. Hey there, and welcome to the Piano Parent Podcast. I'm Shelley Davis, a longtime piano teacher and parent with my husband of 4 mostly musical kids. As parents, we spend so much time trying to encourage and motivate our kids. We wonder if we're doing the best things for them. We second guess our decisions, and we worry if we're going to scar them for life. While you focus on encouraging your kids, I'm here to reassure and inspire you. I'll be here every week with practice tips, inspirational teacher interviews, and musical topics to help you impress your kids with your musical knowledge. Parenting is not for the faint of heart, but it's much easier with support, and you have come to the right place. Good morning, piano parents. Thank you so much for tuning in to the show today. I don't know if you are new to the podcast. I have seen some new followers on Instagram and some new downloads on Libsyn, our podcasting host. And so if you're new to the podcast, new to being a piano parent, I want to first of all welcome you and thank you for subscribing. If you are a new subscriber, if you just accidentally found me, then I hope you will subscribe so that you can catch future episodes. This podcast, as you may have heard in the introduction, is designed and dedicated specifically to piano parents. There are a lot of different resources for piano teachers, and as a piano teacher, I'm very grateful for those. And I guess the assumption is that each teacher will encourage and support the parents in their studio. And that's what I try to do as a piano teacher. And I hope your piano teacher is very informative and supportive and encouraging, not only to your piano kid, but also to you. But I know that sometimes there are questions that you may be curious about, and you'd like to research those out on your own before you talk to your piano teacher. Or maybe you are a newer piano teacher, and maybe I can offer some insight in my few years of experience ahead of you possibly, or just my different experience, different from what you've had. And together we can come up with some solutions that help our piano kids and help the piano parents that support them. And so today's episode is actually right in line with that. I have some new students in my studio. And if you are a new piano parent, not just new to the show, but new to the world of piano lessons, I thought it might be helpful for us to talk about some of the things you can look forward to or some of the things you can anticipate in this first year of piano study. And of course, like any responsible communicator, I'll offer the disclaimer that results may vary depending on the age of your piano kid, your family's musical background, the experience and skill and communication abilities of your piano teacher. There's so many different variables. So I'll basically share my experience and what I tend to see with students in their first year of study with me. A lot of students begin in my studio very young, maybe around the age of first grade, 6 or 7 years old. Elementary age students is the bulk of new students that come into my studio. And my go-to is to use the Piano Adventures curriculum produced by Randall and Nancy Faber. I know there are some teachers who follow an approach that teaches by ear. You may be familiar with the Suzuki method. I think there's a Yamaha method possibly. And your teacher may have their own style, but I can only speak to my experience. So in my studio, those 7-year-old beginners are given a primer book from the Piano Adventures series. And in that book, I'll just kind of talk about some of the highlights of, from a practical standpoint of what you can expect your 7-year-old to learn in that first year of study. Some of the basic things they learn to identify right hand and left hand. And so if your thinking about piano lessons, but you're not quite to the point of hiring a teacher yet, that's something you can do with your child, is make sure that they have a firm understanding of which hand is their right hand, which hand is their left hand. You may know the old trick that if you hold up your pointer finger and extend your thumb and hold your two hands out in front of you, whichever hand is showing you a correct capital letter L, that is your left hand. For your right hand, the L is backwards. Some of my students, when they come in for their first lesson, I'll ask them to write their name on their book. And if they use their right hand to write their name, then I say, oh, that's your writing hand. That's your right hand. I happen to be left-handed, so that wouldn't work for me. Hand independence and finger independence is something that we're going to be working toward in that first year of lessons. One of the very first things that I have students become familiar with is a steady pulse. I think it's extremely important for them to feel the music. And you've probably seen babies respond to music. It's so cute to watch a little toddler who's barely able to stand up. But when you turn on some music, all of a sudden their knees start bouncing to a steady beat. They can feel it. And if they can't, then you as a parent need to be helping them listen to more music, not so much to dissect the music and let's understand the meter and what key is this in and all of those serious things, but just to dance and feel the pulse. If they can clap along to a steady beat, if they can move their body to the steady beat, that's going to be really important. And that's one of the easier things that is caught rather than taught. If you're listening to music in the car when you drive down the road and kind of nodding your head or patting the steering wheel to the steady beat, your piano kid is going to engage in that. They're going to want to do what they see you doing, especially when it looks like so much fun. Back to specific piano lessons and piano things, students are going to learn the music alphabet. We just use the first 7 letters of the alphabet, A through G. And I've covered this more intently in previous podcast episodes. I'll try to link those up in the show notes for you. I think it's fascinating that the piano itself is laid out with the music alphabet horizontally. Of course, the piano keys lay flat. And you have A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Once you start over with G, once you get to G, you start over with A, and the loop just keeps on going. On a standard piano with 88 keys, the very lowest piano key to the far left is A. So you could just walk right up using every white key on the piano, and that's going to follow the music alphabet. In the first year of study, students may begin playing on the black keys. Most likely, they're not going to call them by the sharp or flat name. They're going to see a group of 2 black keys, a group of 3 black keys, and they'll learn finger numbers to help them know whether to play the black keys with your right hand number 2 finger or your left hand number 3 finger, and so on. By the way, if you're not familiar, in piano, thumbs are finger number 1. So your pointer finger is number 2, middle finger is 3, ring finger is 4, and pinky is 5. And I don't typically have 7-year-olds who are concerned about their middle finger. Occasionally, a child may say, oh, that's the bad finger. And in piano lessons, there is no bad finger, but I will refer to it as your middle finger or finger number 3, and it's useful in piano lessons. So don't let your adult experiences negatively associated with that middle finger, don't let those, taint or bring a negative idea to piano lessons. Get rid of that already. That has no place in piano lessons. So from the beginning lessons, they may be playing on the black keys, but we're not calling them by names. We're associating them with a right hand or left hand or a certain finger number. And then after a while, they get to move to the white keys, and I have different tricks for how I help students know the names of the white keys surrounding a group of 2 black keys and surrounding a group of 3 black keys. And your piano teacher may have all kinds of tools and tricks and whatever helps your piano kid identify the names of the piano keys instantly is what you're aiming for. If you see that your piano kid is trying to count from A, that very furthest to the left, lowest piano key, and then count all the way up to the key they need, that is a waste of time, and that is a crutch that is going to slow your piano kid down. They need to have ways to be able to identify piano keys instantly. And like I said, I've talked about this before on the podcast, and so I'll try to link up some episodes that will be helpful to you. Within the first few months, depending on how your piano kid is comprehending and progressing and absorbing the information and practicing the information at home, soon they will start to recognize different note values, like quarter notes and half notes and whole notes are the 3 that are introduced in the Piano Adventures book. Toward the end of the book, they learn about quarter rests. In my elementary class at school, I teach students about quarter notes and quarter rests, and then I teach them about a pair of eighth notes. So every beat is either a sound or no sound or 2 sounds. And that works really well in the elementary setting. But in piano lessons, when you're able to press a piano key and hold it for 2 beats or hold it for 4 beats, it's nice to have half notes and whole notes introduced. About this time that students are learning about longer note values in the Piano Adventures primer book, they get to learn songs like Mary Had a Little Lamb, although they call it Merrily We Roll Along. Also Beethoven's Ode to Joy. And then when whole notes are introduced, then they're learning the nursery rhyme Old MacDonald Had a Farm. And so in addition to learning music that is just a teaching piece to teach a specific piano concept, they're starting to get introduced and reintroduced to some familiar songs that they might have been singing since they were very little. So if you are already singing nursery rhymes and child songs with your piano kid, that is going to be a big help in piano lessons. They're starting to recognize, I hold this note with my voice. I hold it out longer because it's the end of this musical sentence. And sometimes my voice goes higher, sometimes my voice goes lower. Those are activities that are not even connected directly to the piano, things that you can do when you're just out taking a walk or playing at the park, but they will have an enormous positive effect on piano lessons and playing the piano when they come to that point. Some of the other topics covered, I'm just looking at the table of contents in the primer book. They'll learn to read the staff, some of the basic notes on the staff. The right hand learns from middle C up to treble G, so just 5 notes on the staff. The left hand learns from middle C all the way down to bass C. I shouldn't say learns exactly, maybe just they're exposed to that range of 8 piano keys and 8 notes on the staff. It's a very basic introduction, and the next book goes into more detail with helping children become more fluent readers of those notes. So from your perspective, how you can help your piano kid when you see that they're getting to that area in the music, don't get the cart before the horse and jump right to Every Good Boy Does Fine. You may have learned that when you were in elementary school, and that's a common thing. It seems like people may not know much about music, but they know Every Good Boy Does Fine has something to do with the staff. And it does. And follow your teacher's recommendation. But I find too much information can just kind of muddy up everything. And so in this first book for my students, they're just learning middle C, which is easy to identify. It's kind of funny. In the world, we all don't want to stand out. We don't want to be different from the crowd. We just want to blend in. But the thing we love about middle C is that it is different, and it's easy to find it because it's below the staff. If we're thinking about the right hand, reading the treble clef, that one that looks kind of like a fancy S or a G, the middle C is below those lines and spaces, and it has its very own special line. And since it's a C and it's got that line going through the middle of it, you could imagine it's a cat with whiskers. So there's all kinds of little tricks for identifying C, but C is one of the easiest notes to recognize. And then the line above C, the bottom line of the treble staff, is E, and the second line is G. And those are the only lines that first-year students tend to need. And so if you try to introduce all this other stuff before your teacher's ready, it could complicate things. It could make things confusing. And then a lot of teachers these days are not a fan of the mnemonics anyway. It's confusing to think about, okay, every good boy does fine. That's for the right hand. Was that for the lines or was that for the spaces? I don't know. What was the one for the spaces? There's something about face somewhere, F-A-C-E. And anyway, it can be helpful if you're already familiar with the note names. If you're not familiar with the note names, sometimes that's just another step in the process that can actually slow things down and become a crutch rather than actually helping your child read music. I can't tell you how many students that should be more advanced, intermediate students, that when they try to read music, they're going through saying, every good boy, okay, that's a B. Every good boy does, okay, that's a D. And my goodness, that's not how to read music at all. Every now and then I like to ask ChatGPT for its suggestions on different topics. And sometimes I'll agree and say, oh, I didn't think about that. Yeah, that's something that's useful. Sometimes you can tell that it is, what is that analogy of a third grader trying to present a book report when they obviously didn't read the book? Sometimes I feel like ChatGPT just has a lot of information and it can put it together in a fairly well-constructed sentence. And so there's your information. Anyway, I asked ChatGPT what you can expect for the average 7-year-old in the first year of lessons. And I'll put the list in the show notes for you just because some of it's helpful. Some of it I've already talked about. Some of the other things that ChatGPT listed was proper hand position. We talked about that a little bit. And posture at the keyboard. That's extremely helpful. Understanding musical expression and emotion. Maybe I should focus more on that with my first year students, but that tends to be something that kind of gets pushed back until they get more expressive music. There's just so much expression you can do with Merrily We Roll Along. And we do experiment with things. And what if we're in a boat and we're just moving along a peaceful lake, then we could play that more gently. But what if a storm comes up on the lake? Then you can use story to help enhance musical expression. So I'm glad ChatGPT recommended that. Another thing on the list that I haven't talked about yet is performance skills and helping your piano kid build confidence through performances. And in my studio, we do this through piano parties and informal opportunities to share music with other people. We have a fall piano party coming up in October, and then in December, I will have my students play at our local retirement center. And that is such a friendly environment for kids. The residents are so welcoming, so happy to see visitors coming to visit them and share music. And even if your piano teacher doesn't have something like that available, that might be something that you could do. When your family gathers, maybe you could have a time where your piano kid plays a song or two for grandparents or cousins or people who love them and are going to support them and encourage them. Those smaller informal performances help build their confidence and their courage so that in the spring of the year, when most studios have a more formal end of the year or a spring recital in some sort of performance hall or a church auditorium, that is less intimidating because your piano kid has already been doing these performances throughout the year. And you may face some pushback with your piano kid. If this is a new experience, they may be a little nervous to play in front of other people. Do everything you can to encourage them to face that fear. And I'll link up some episodes from the archive that will help you with some suggestions of how you can encourage them. Do not feed into that fear. Don't make it bigger than it is. You may be afraid as a parent. You might be terrified to get up in front of a group of people and speak. So you know what that feels like. And wouldn't it be so much better for you if you had been encouraged when you were younger to just do these things, just to get up in front of a group of people and share your music and listen to the positive feedback that you receive? Then if that had happened for you as an adult, then you would have skills, you would have tactics to be able to manage those anxious feelings. I'm not saying they're not going to be there. I'm just saying you need to learn how to manage them. And you want your piano kid to learn how to manage them. They're going to be in all kinds of situations, whether it is a wedding toast when they are the best man at their best friend's wedding and the groom asks them to do a toast, there's going to be plenty of occasions for them to be able to speak in front of a group. And you want them to be able to do that with confidence and minimal anxiety. One final thing from ChatGPT is the fact of establishing practice habits. So far, we've talked about the things that you can expect from your piano teacher and for your piano kid to learn in their first year of piano lessons. But to have all of that be as successful as it possibly can be, the responsibility is on you on the days in between lessons to help your piano kid establish a regular routine of practice. And this topic is so important that I cover it pretty much every couple of months. We're talking about practice suggestions and ways to motivate practice, and any way you can talk about practice, we talk about practice here on the podcast. And I cannot express how important it is for you to make sure that there is some sort of regular practicing happening on the days in between lessons. The more you can help your piano kid establish that routine, actually from the beginning, it's not going to take very long. Their songs are not very complicated. And so they could go from one week to the next and make progress even if they don't touch the piano at home. But at some point, they're going to hit a wall where the music is more complicated than they can just comprehend after playing it one time during their lesson. They're going to need to spend more time with it to help their fingers learn how to make these different movements and help their eyes process all of the information that's coming at them, help their ears listen to the sounds they're producing to make sure it matches what their eyes see on the page. Even if they're just playing by ear, they still need to hear how the hands are working together. All of that takes time. And if you can establish some good practice habits from the very beginning, even when their music is really, really easy and uncomplicated, and then maintain those practice habits through the first year of study into their future years of study, that's going to be such a gift for your piano kid. And your piano teacher is going to be so grateful to know that they have a partner in the success of this piano student of theirs, that the piano parent, you, are supporting practice at home, and then the teacher is giving new information at the lesson, and the child is the one that benefits. And then the last thing I wanted to highlight on this topic of things that you can expect during the first year of piano lessons is something that computerized artificial intelligence, GPT, has no comprehension about, and that is relationship. When you entrust your piano kid to another adult for either private one-on-one piano lessons or even in a group setting with other piano kids, you are helping your child to be able to learn from and trust another adult. And that can be such a beautiful thing. And I know that you will be diligent and make sure that your piano teacher is someone who you can trust and you can allow your child to build a relationship with, that they can learn from this person, they can trust them to be positive and encouraging and supportive and engaging. I just think that's the most beautiful thing. We as parents love our children. We invest so much into our children, but then to have another adult who is also investing and encouraging and influencing our child in a positive way, that is beautiful. I've spoken before on previous episodes about what a gift it is for your child to have that one-on-one, undivided attention from another adult. When my students come to their lesson, we have 30-minute sessions, and sometimes they have brothers and sisters that are in the studio waiting for their turn, and sometimes the parent sits in on the lesson, and that's wonderful. I have an open door policy in my studio, but that child's time sitting at my piano is one-on-one interaction between me and them. And I listen to them. I ask them questions. I listen to their answers. I ask them what they think about their music. What do you feel like is a struggle with this music? What part do you feel like you did great with? We just have engaging conversation centered around music. And along the way, I'm trying to bolster their confidence and tell them, I love how you were able to end that piece. That was such a delicate ending. You slowed down and you got softer. It was a beautiful way to put a little bow on that piece. I try to applaud their efforts and encourage them and let them know they are seen, they are heard. And for you to give your child that gift of an influential, positive role model that has undivided attention for them every single week, that is a treasure. And so make sure you find a teacher that will speak the kind of things into your child that will be valuable to you and resonate with your family values. There's a lot going on in the first year of piano lessons. And if you just started piano this year and you've gotten into, where are we? End of September, early October, you've gotten in, maybe past the honeymoon phase, and now maybe their music's getting a little more complicated. Maybe their schedule's getting a little bit busier. It's hard to keep up with that practice. I hope that you feel equipped, piano parent, to keep that practice routine going, to encourage your piano kid when they face a piece of challenging music that's not as easy as that it was when they first opened the book, and that you are able to keep them encouraged and motivated to work through this obstacle and keep enjoying their music. The more they learn, the more complicated the music is, and the more valuable the support and encouragement you can offer them will be. I mentioned this primer book called Piano Adventures, and on average, I would say piano kids are able to complete that book within the first year. Some students, they just go at a snail's pace and don't progress like I know they could if they spent a little more time working on it in between lessons. Some kids just soak it up and they are finished with the first book within a matter of months. So the speed really doesn't matter. There's a beautiful saying or quote or adage about flowers. A flower doesn't compare itself to another flower. It just blooms when it's ready. And I think the same thing can be true for your piano kid. Of course, that flower does need sunlight and water and all of the good things that will help make sure it grows. And you want the same things for your piano kid. Congratulations on signing your kid up for piano lessons. Congratulations to you for being proactive and finding this podcast. And I hope this has been encouraging to you. And be sure and subscribe so that you can listen to the next episode whenever it comes out. And be sure to check out the website where you can search for all of the previous topics that we've talked about. Today is episode 352. So there are 351 other episodes, teacher interviews, parent interviews, lots of different topics that you may want to go searching through. If you search and don't find what you're looking for, send me a message. You can email me at Shelley, Shelley, at pianoparentpodcast.com, or you can send me a direct message on Instagram at pianoparentpodcast and let me know if you can't find the topic you're looking for. Maybe that's something I need to cover on a future episode, and I would love to hear from you. Thanks so much for tuning in today, and I look forward to seeing you again next week. And that's the end of today's episode. Thank you so much for hanging around all the way to the end. If you haven't done so already, this would be a great time for you to hit the subscribe button. If you're listening through Spotify or Apple Podcasts or whatever your favorite podcast player is, hit subscribe so you will be the first to receive next week's episode. I would love to connect with you. You can find me on Facebook and Instagram at Piano Parent Podcast, and you could just email me, Shelley at pianoparentpodcast.com.